Hey, what's up guys? John here. We are witnessing, I believe, one of the biggest bubbles in US history. It's the auto industry. The auto industry is going through a massive transition, and what we are seeing is we're seeing a lot of these vehicles switch to electric, whether it be Ford, whether it be Bentley, whether it be Mercedes. All of them are switching forward and going into electric vehicles. And so what will this look like in the face of our traditional combustion engine? I believe what we're going to be seeing here is we're going to see a massive problem, a huge bubble, and it's going to blow up. It's going to be the biggest bubble in history. Here's what I think is likely going to happen. So you might not know this, but the average car note in America is a whopping $712 per month. $712 per month. That is astounding. Then you factor in inflation costs of a whopping $460 per month. You add the 712 and the 460 together, you multiply it by 12 months in a year, it's a newfound expense of $14,000. $14,000 in America. That is ridiculous, considering that the average American makes about $40,000 a year. So you have about 35% of their income going out exclusively to a vehicle, not factoring in that rents have risen about 18 to 20% across the board. So people are up to their teeth in auto loan debt and household expenses. Now, what I think is very interesting and unique about this specific bubble is that all those automakers that I just mentioned are switching into electric. And when they switch into electric and people buy these electric vehicles, are they going to be taking them to Joe's Auto? No, they're not. They're likely to be taking them to the dealership. We're going to be seeing a very big transition away from a lot of these small local auto shops, and I think the entire industry is going to be completely changed overnight, over the next 5 years, which is, overnight. We're going to start to see more and more and more of this. And what I think is likely to happen is we're going to see gas prices continue to rise, and people say, you know what, do I really need to spend, $1,200, $1,500 a month on a vehicle? When you factor in for gas and the insurance, and you factor everything in, people are going to be like, no, I simply can't afford it, right? So what's going to happen? People are going to be downsizing vehicles, and then essentially I think everyone's just going to be forced to switch over to electric vehicles. So you ask yourself, what is this going to look like for, let's look at the Turo industry, for example. That received a lot of hype over the last couple of years. Everyone was pumping it up. Every YouTuber, everyone on TikTok was saying how much money you can make on Turo. I never talked about it here, but a lot of people did. They thought it was the biggest opportunity. I thought it was the biggest risk. And the reason being is we're looking at it right now. It's all based on the idea that gas price is going to remain low and that tourism is going to remain high, and that people simply can rent out their vehicles on Turo for the weekend and drive it during the weekday and have guests pay for their note. And that's simply not the case. If you look at what's happening right now, for example, you got a whopping 14 million members, 450,000 vehicles with Europe, Canada, and the United States. You have a lot of people that jumped into this industry buying 2, 3, 4 cars, buying Lamborghinis, buying Range Rovers, buying SUVs, and buying all these different exotic cars to rent on Turo. And now what we're seeing is this affordability crisis meet with this new problem, right? So 2012, everything's looking relatively normal. Then 2021 hits. You're like, okay, see that big spike. 2022, it's like a rocket ship, right? This is an affordability worsens. Here's what's going on in the industry. So the average monthly car payment reached a record high of $712 in May. The amount that consumers must pay in order to afford new vehicles has once again risen. Estimated monthly car payments have increased 1.7% in May to $712. Now, mind you, Jerome Powell is scheduled to hike interest rates again and again and again and again, so that $712 might turn into $725 to $750 to $800 as time progresses. And the more expensive that car note becomes and the more expensive gas becomes, the more people turn their vehicles in. We're even seeing right now auto lenders taking aggressive action to, try to get into forbearance programs, help people get into forbearance programs. Because if you think about this, imagine you were the one that sold all these vehicles 30% or 40% over sticker. And people put down $5,000 down, $7,000 down. They didn't have the best credit, but they put the money down, they were willing to sign in the dotted line. You said, okay, great, I'm gonna sell you this car. This $30,000 car for $45,000 or $40,000, and you put your $5,000 down, and I'm essentially financing the vehicle 100 plus, probably 120% over sticker, right? I'm financing that. If you turn the car in and I'm forced to sell it at the same time when everyone else is getting their cars, returned, there's going to be more sellers than buyers, and I may end up taking a 40% or 50% loss by taking the car back. That probably doesn't make sense for me to do that. So I want to issue some type of forbearance or something, we can work together on this. We're seeing more and more dealers and lenders work on these types of programs. And I think that this is going to be a growing trend But I think that eventually people aren't going to be in a position to even do the forbearance or even work out any type of deal unless the cost is greatly reduced. And I don't think most lenders are going to be able to reduce, their costs 50% or 60%. Eventually, this is what I think is likely going to happen if gas prices hit $8, $9, $10 a gallon. We're going to be moving into this era. And the reason being is that they told us. They've said that we're in a transition away from fossil fuels, and you have all of these vehicles that demand fossil fuels. So what is this going to mean, right? Rising costs are guaranteed going forward for these vehicles. That's a record high for monthly payments according to Cox Automotive, which published its new vehicle affordability index recently. The revelation is bad for consumers because almost all factors are working against them. Although median income grew by 0.03%, incentives declined, the average interest rate increased, and the price paid moved 1% higher, all of which means that it's harder than ever for consumers to afford new cars, and that's before they even consider the price of gas used to power them. Indeed, Cox Automotive found the number of median weeks of income needed to buy a new vehicle increased for the fourth month in a row. In May, consumers needed 41.3 weeks of income to pay off their car, up from 40.8 weeks in April. More concerning, that was up 19% from May of 2021. NBC, meanwhile, reports that the issue is only expected to get worse, with the Federal Reserve boosting interest rates by 0.075 percentage points. Borrowing costs are expected to be even higher for numerous consumer loans, including those for cars. Despite the challenges still faced with supply lines due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, China's lockdowns, and trucker strikes in South Korea, Brian Moody of Kelly's Blue Book is he's the least optimistic about the car prices. Although prices are up for May, it's only 1%, so that indicates we may be headed towards a place where prices start to decrease. While month-to-month prices have only increased 1%, new car prices are up 12.6% higher than they were a year ago. Used car prices are up higher at 16.1% as compared to the previous year, although the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, that has pushed the average transaction price for new cars to $44,832 in May and $31,450 for used vehicles. With supply lines still vexing manufacturers, loan rates rising, and income falling to keep up, the pressure is mounting on consumers, according to Moody's, though there are still some deals to be had with less sought out after brands such as Mazda, Hyundai, and Buick. Now, I think that people that are looking for those more demanding brands such as Mercedes, BMW, like the nicer vehicles, that many would call nicer, those vehicles I think are going to become a very interesting segment of the market. The reason being is, sure, the payments are high, right? But so are the repair costs. I've had a Mercedes. I've had luxury cars before. They're not the easiest. You could spend thousands and thousands of dollars to simply just maintain one of these vehicles per year. I had one vehicle. The cost on this vehicle was like well over $10,000 a year just maintaining it, right? So this is years ago, and things have only gotten more expensive, right? Everything is much more expensive when you have an expensive vehicle. I think we're going to start to see more people downsize into vehicles such as Honda Civics, where you could fix the cars for relatively cheap, the payments are relatively cheap, and the gas to match. Little 17, you could fit 17 gallons. Even if you spend $10 a gallon, $170, people are going to start to say, hey, you know what, $170 a week, it's going to cost me, give or take about $650, $700 a month in gas. But if I downsize from a $700 car payment to a $200 car payment, then it's almost as if the gas prices didn't impact me. We're going to have people starting to think like that across the entire space. And I think that we are seeing the biggest transition in the auto industry that we've ever seen in the history of the industry. What do you think about this? Where do you see the auto market going in 2022 and 2023? I think we're going to see these dealers, these lenders, just desperately trying to get out from under these cars in the next 12 months. Drop your comments below. What do you think about the Turo industry? Do you think the Turo market, the Turo side hustle, is going to be a huge bubble that's going to pop? Maybe you have an auto loan and it's subprime, and your interest that you're paying on this loan is through the roof. You're paying way too much. It's mainly because your credit score isn't what it should be, and they view you as high risk. If you need help with your credit score to improve your score, My team of credit repair specialists, in-house credit repair specialists, are the best. To have help with your credit score, cashnow.video. Cashnow.video. If you want to get on the YouTube grind with me, cashnow.video. And if you want to invest in real estate when the market crashes, but you want to learn now and get everything in line and be, on the ball, so when things do crash, you can run out there and pounce on a great deal, cashnow.video. Subscribe, or else subscribe to my second YouTube channel. It's going to be a call-in show, an interactive call-in show where we talk about real estate, business, and the economy. It's going to be really cool. The link for that is the top comment below. Simply hit the subscribe button. And LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all up in the banner. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.